Well, hey, we are so glad you're joining us today on our very next episode. Today, we are talking about how to get your fight back. Tricia, what the heck? What does that even mean? Get your fight back.
Girl, for me, I know that there are moments in my life where I have just thought, I'm giving up. I'm laying down. I have nothing else to give. I've been discouraged too much. I've been defeated, and there's nothing left in me to keep going. And those moments are kind of terrifying to me when I feel like I have no more fight left. And the Lord has been gracious in those moments to say, okay, I'm here for you. We're gonna fight through this to get you back in the fight. But I do think that every woman probably knows what we mean when we say get your fight back, because there are different voices in our lives that want to squelch us so that we don't have it in us to fight. There are circumstances that we can face that make us feel like it's not even worth fighting. We're not even worth the fight. I've felt that before. And so I think we just want to say, hey, we want to help you get your fight back because you are worth the fight. What does it mean to you?
Very similar. I mean, I think there's been so many times in my life where I've just found myself like in a ditch, it feels like.
Yeah.
Where I have fought tooth and nail to not be in that ditch, and I find myself there. And just there's nothing I can do to will myself up and out of that thing, you know?
Yeah.
And similar, like circumstances, situations, seasons, it could be so many different things that make us feel that way. But just that kind of in this conversation, just setting in that hopelessness feeling of just, I don't have what it takes. And I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this okay. You know, just that helpless, hopeless, despairing feeling that we've all faced at different moments in our life.
And you know, maybe this is just a personality thing. And for me, when I felt that, like I don't have what it takes, when I open the Word of God and I read it, I actually read like, yeah, you don't, but I do. And for me, oh, that helps me so much to come to a place to go, yeah, I don't have what it takes, but He does. And so the fight isn't over. Because He's got me in this. I feel like the world will say, like, you have what it takes. And I hear that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. But then when I find myself in the ditch, that doesn't help me.
No.
Because I don't have what it takes. And so I'm really encouraged by His Word and His promises that tell me, like, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. Like, when you are weak, I am strong. Those promises help me in this place where I don't have the fight to know, oh, His power is what I need. It's not my power. His strength comes on full display when I'm weak. And so we can get our fight back knowing the one who fights for us.
That's right. And I think there's this like buzzword right now, like I'm deconstructing. And I think it has a lot to do with feeling this feeling. Like, you know, we want to label it as deconstruction, but sometimes we just get...
That's good.
We get to these moments of, I am not enough. And do I believe that He's enough or not? And it's a wrestle.
It is a wrestle.
And just because you're questioning and wrestling and wondering of His goodness and where is it in my life, like just because you're having these thoughts and feelings does not equal deconstruction. And sometimes I just want to reframe it and say, no, you're in a relationship with Jesus and you're walking out the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And there's ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
There's some times where you feel victorious and that you're fighting well. And other times it feels like, man, I can't make another day. Like I can barely say Jesus in this season. I can barely whisper a prayer. I can barely open the word. But the enemy would love to tell us, see, you're deconstructing.
Yeah.
Your faith is just raveling right underneath you. And I just don't think it's as true as culture is trying to represent right now.
Yeah, I think that's so helpful. And I love when you talk about like the wrestling there. And I've always been so inspired by the story of when Jacob wrestles with God. Some people are like, what even is that story? But I'm like, I live that.
Yeah.
I feel like I wrestle with God. I just have this wrestle kind of within me of struggles, whether it's questions about my faith and doubts or just wondering why this circumstance is happening in my life and wrestling just through life and knowing that the Lord is so gracious to come and say, let's wrestle with this together. And he'll let me continue to wrestle until the point where he goes, I just need to tell her I'm the one in charge here.
Yeah.
And like, I love the picture when he just like kind of touches Jacob's hip and then he walks with a limp.
Yeah.
Like for the rest of his life. And he remembers that day where he wrestled with God face to face. And I walk with a limp in life.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder to go like, I know the one who is in the fight with me. And in my weaknesses, in my limp, in those hard times, in the struggle, I know where to turn now because I've wrestled with the one who's willing to be in the fight with me.
Yeah.
That's a goodness of God.
So kind of him.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so let's continue this conversation about getting our fight back. When have you had to do that?
Yeah. Well, gosh, I think there's
so many times.
So many examples. I think maybe the most tender ones to my heart are at the top of my mind probably. But, there was a time where I literally had a burnout. Like I literally was working so many hours at work and the kids were young and going through really difficult seasons on their own, and it was just the perfect storm for me to just feel like I've got to keep going and I've got to keep pretending that I'm all right. And I literally woke up on a normal day going to work, and I remember someone asked me to do something. And it was not a very big task, but I like within my body, I felt like there was zero space for one more thing. Like I don't know how to explain it. I've never had that experience before, and I had never had it since. But they said that task, and I literally burst into tears, and I could not stop crying. And I cried for several days, and. At the time, I was so blessed to have the kindness of my pastor just say, I know what this is. You're going through a burnout, and you need to go home. I want you to take 3 weeks, and I want you to do nothing work-related.
Wow.
And I literally felt like my brain broke. Like, that's how I have to explain it. It's like it just stopped functioning. It was trying to hold on to far too many things and just keep above water, tread. And instead of listening to my body, myself, my limits, I just kept saying, I've got it. And even in that space, I didn't even really include the Lord in a lot of those things. The beautiful part was I remember crying on my couch, and I literally was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of this space.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can go back to work. I don't know if, I can do anything ever again. Because it was almost like my brain had been wiped clean. Like, I don't know how to verbally explain it, but when I was in therapy for it, the guy was like, no, like, literally you could damage your brain forever.
Wow.
If you, like, keep at it at this pace.
Wow.
And not listen to your warning signs. So I remember being on my couch and I was just crying and like, I've failed everybody around me. I've failed myself. I've failed the Lord. And he just gave me this picture of running before me, and he knew I was coming. And he knew the ditch that I was about to be in. And he lined it with pillows. And he just crawled in there and he waited on me to get there.
Wow.
And he just said, Crystal, I'm not hurrying you up and out of this. I'm sitting with you in it, and together we're going to get through it. Wow. And it was such a relief because I had nothing to offer.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, I couldn't do it. But he was so kind to go before me, wait for me to get there, and meet me in that moment. And it's only through him that I was able to crawl my way back. Yeah. And now I have way more boundaries in place, and talk to him about it often. Yeah. Because I'm like, hey, that happened. Yeah. I really don't ever want to go back to that pit. Yeah. Can you please be my guide and just talk to me about this every day so we don't find ourselves here again?
How'd you get healthy? How did you get out of that ditch? Yeah. I mean, you said therapy.
Yeah,
you went to therapy. What else did you do? Like, practically, if someone's listening and they're like, I'm there, or I feel myself heading there, what do I do?
So in that time, it's almost like I lost all the rapid thoughts. So it was like blank. I felt like to think anything and to feel anything, I just kept playing the word over myself, like on the Dwell app.
I love
and
that.
I just, Rosie, my favorite voice.
It's a good voice. It's my voice of choice.
But she just, would just read scripture, and I would just let it soothe my mind and just renew my mind. And then I really rested. I didn't get my phone out for a few weeks. I didn't watch TV. I didn't look at my phone. And I slept.
Good.
And I went outside in my literally empty thoughts, like just silence, and just sat in it and didn't hurry myself out of it. And I think that's where my brain actually started to heal. Yeah. And then the Lord just also started to heal my heart and my spirit. Yeah. And everything that I thought was gone, he started restoring.
Isn't that
slowly.
Like him?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But there's so much wisdom in the way that you handled that and walked the healing journey. And I think, wouldn't the enemy love to keep you in that place and to keep you unhealthy and without boundaries and all those things? But you had the guidance from the Holy Spirit, your background with therapy even, and the wisdom that the Lord gave you to find your way out of that. And he guided you out of that, restored it. How beautiful. And I'm thankful that you're continuing so much ministry because the enemy would have loved to have said, no, you're not going to get back. He's not going to restore it, and to squelch all the gifting that you have and we're giving the church. So, talk about getting the fight back. Yeah,
I really honestly believe that it was God's sweetest gift to me.
Really?
Because I think about the destructive path that I was on. Yeah. If I wasn't able to acknowledge where I was headed. I had no mindfulness of where I was, how much I was working. I never wanted to disappoint anybody.
Yeah.
And I would just work and work and work and put so much pressure on myself to fulfill everyone's expectations of me because I didn't want to disappoint anybody.
Yeah.
And this like catapulted me into, no, you're going to disappoint people, and you're not going to meet their expectations of you. You're not going to be that friend that girl thinks that you should be for her, and you're not going to be able to be present at every activity, and you're not going to, it was just like my kids, my husband, friends, the church, like work, all of it. I was like, I can never disappoint, and I always have to show up. What ridiculous pressure.
So much pressure.
And just so much destruction could have happened in my life.
Yeah.
If I would have lived under that pressure for far too long.
I think that women live with so much pressure.
Yeah.
And so much of it comes from within.
Yes.
And then obviously we've talked about the enemy so much. I think that women resonate with that maybe more than anything, just the constant pressure and to wear all the hats, do all the things, never make a mistake, never disappoint. And so I love hearing you talk about the kindness of God, just to show you, you will make mistakes, you will disappoint, but let me walk you through this healing journey to get you to a healthy space.
What about you?
There's so many. Which should I choose? I think when we moved here was probably to Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was probably...
What, you weren't excited?
It was like, my whole world's falling apart. What is this foreign land?
Where is Tulsa?
What even is it? Didn't even visit before we committed.
Wow.
To being here. I was like
as or not, you're stuck.
Lord, make a way. But I had a pity party for quite a time. I mean, at least a year. Probably longer. Just living in that place of, what is this? Why did this happen to me? Living as a victim in a lot of ways. And I feel like that, man, doesn't the enemy love that?
Yeah.
If you're in that place of feeling like a victim, then everyone is against you, kind of. Yeah. And it took a toll on our marriage and just my mental health even. And it was a tough time. And I think that there were moments where I felt stuck, aimless, unsure of where I was going, what I was doing, what the Lord had for me. I felt like I had to put just a lot of my dreams away because I didn't see that there was any possibility for that here. Yeah. But the Lord knew He had much more ahead of me than I could have ever seen. Yeah. But I really thought that I had left it all behind. Yeah. And that there was nothing good for me here, which is so weird to even say. And I don't think I would have voiced that or said that, but that's what I was believing. Yeah. And so, like I said, it took a toll on our marriage. Neither of us were really understanding the other person in those first couple of years that we moved here, and my husband was under a lot of pressure at work, and then I was struggling a lot just with the grief of leaving my old life behind and trying to rebuild a brand new life, not knowing anyone, and I felt very isolated in that time and really lonely because I really didn't know anyone, and I was just searching for friendships. I was searching to be known by anyone. The beautiful part of that season was that the Lord was my best friend. Yeah. And so I experienced a lot of nearness with Him, a lot of kindness from Him just to be close to me. He was the only one that I could turn to really for a lot of that season because my husband and I were in strife. I didn't have friendships yet. My parents struggled to counsel me through that because they had a hard time seeing me struggle so much. And so they would say all the well-meaning things like, there are way worse things out there that people are walking through. And that was the worst thing for them to say, you know, and I felt like no one really understood what I was feeling, but the Lord, he did. And so he was so kind to me in the midst of my loneliness and the pain and just the difficulty of that time. But I think the place where I felt the most like I was just laying down and giving up and not feeling like I could fight anymore, there were just a couple of times in our marriage, I'm just being honest, where I felt like, can we keep going? And I knew that we were going to. But I was like, is this what it's going to always be like? And I was like, can I keep fighting? Is there any progress going here? And I felt like the fight was just between us rather than fighting for us, you know? And so we, by God's grace, found a Christian counselor who began to help us move forward and start focusing on a target rather than on each other as the target.
That's good.
To fight for our marriage and to find a way forward, to understand one another and to not give up the fight for our marriage, which we never were going to. Like it wasn't an option. And praise God, we had determined that before. We were going to be in this marriage, but I wanted to fight for a healthy, beautiful, God-honoring marriage, and it didn't feel like that for a little while. And so there were moments where I just wanted to say, I can't do it anymore. Like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to move forward. But like I said, we got with that Christian counselor and he helped guide us, and the Lord helped guide us forward. And we have just seen beautiful redemption in our marriage and in our friendship with one another. And I think that was a season of my life where there were many moments that I felt like I could just give up. And I'm grateful that the Lord never let me do that. And I remember one day reading in the book of Jeremiah, kind of a random book and a random verse, but it says something like, get up, get dressed, prepare for action. And I took that as just like my mantra when I didn't know what else to do, because there were so many days that I didn't even know what I was getting up for. I was like, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know people here. My marriage is in a rough spot. What am I even doing? And the Lord gave me that verse, get up, get dressed, prepare for action. So every day I would get up, get dressed, tie my shoes. That's like, even if I wasn't looking flawless, I was probably wearing something like this. If I put my shoes on, this is a weird thing. If I just put my shoes on, like tie my shoes, I felt like I was getting into the fight. Like I wasn't giving up on myself, on my marriage.
That's so
on
good.
Moving forward. So there's my little nugget. If you're in a place struggling, like put your shoes on. Get up and just follow where he leads. Even if you feel like you're floundering and you're aimless, because he will lead you. He will guide you. Don't give up. And so he was so kind to say, this is your mantra for this season. And then now, looking back and seeing all that he's done, I'm so grateful he moved me to this foreign land and showed me the way to all that the ministry he's had for me, all the friendship he's had for me, the blessing in our marriage. You know, when you go through a struggle, how much deeper, stronger, more substance, more beauty there is on the other side. Because we had a beautiful marriage, beautiful friendship, but that rough patch allowed us to dig even deeper and to treasure each other even more. I was talking to a girl recently who she's kind of giving up on her marriage. And I was able to say, man, it's worth fighting for. Don't just lay down easily.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep fighting for the other person, because on the other side, there's this beautiful relationship waiting for you. So that's a time that I had to get my fight back and allow the Lord to walk that journey with me.
And like you said, I mean, we shared, just a little bit of all the times that we felt, but it could be a parent watching their child not live for the Lord.
Yeah.
And they raise them up to live for the Lord, and they're just feeling despair about that, or a job loss, a diagnosis, the loss of a friend or a family member, just grieving different seasons, grieving life not looking the way that you expected.
That's a big one.
It can start small, where we're like just discouraged and bummed about it.
Yeah.
And then it can turn into a deep, deep wound and pain. Like, what would you say are some markers in a person's life to kind of recognize that they're literally giving up the fight?
Yeah, I think for me, what I start to see in myself when I'm beginning to give up the fight, I see complacency begin to set in, a lack of desire for the things I once loved and cared for. I see an apathy. That's where I go when I begin to give up the fight. And when I lose that, because I'm a passionate person, when I begin to see the apathy set in, the complacency set in, that's when I know something's off. You're heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I think in last episode we talked about numbing ourselves a lot. I think when you begin to see that happening and you see yourself turning towards those things that you're looking for to numb the pain inside or the difficulty that you're facing, that is a marker that you're laying down and you're giving up the fight. Those are some of the things that I've noticed in myself and in friends. What are some things you would say?
One would be isolation. When I start closing down and not being vulnerable with those around me, like including my best friend's husband, when I'm not willing to say, hey, I'm going through a rough season. Then I know that I'm actually sitting in it. And like not even maybe wanting out currently. Like I'm just giving up. Like, this is my reality. And if I start hearing myself say things like, well, this is just how your life is, Crystal. This is your weight loss journey. This is your job forever. Like, this is your whatever it is, where I just feel like I'm stuck. That feeling, that despair of like nothing's gonna change, like you were sharing about how you're feeling like, is this gonna be my marriage forever? Like, when we start saying to ourselves, this is it for forever,
dangerous
because I mean, what a playground for the enemy. Like,
he wants to get us stuck there.
If we can get stuck there, then he just piles. And then he'll bring people to speak lies over us.
Because that's all
validate. Those are true markers for me. When I isolate, when I start saying what the enemy's been telling me, when I start saying it like it's truth. And then when I'm unwilling to talk to the Lord about it. That is like real. If I... Because to invite him to talk to me with me about it is saying, I believe you still have work to do here, and I believe in your goodness here. And sometimes we are stubborn and arrogant, and we put up walls to the Lord, and we're tired. And we know if we acknowledge him in that space, then he's gonna work on us. And so
we're like, I'm not up for it.
We just don't wanna. And gosh, sadly, I've sat there in those spaces for far too long in my life, in different seasons. And I have always regretted that,
Yeah.
of
Without a
not
doubt.
letting him join me in it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've received and that I try to give to other people is when you find yourself in one of those seasons, one of those circumstances, not to withdraw from God, but to lean into Him. Is not only will He give us all the comfort that we need in that season, but He will speak the tough things, the conviction. He'll shine a light on that to bring us out of it. And sometimes we just don't want it. We don't have the fight left in us, and we know that it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult to look at, and we don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But it's His kindness to pull us out of it. The withdrawing is so dangerous from others and from the Lord.
Yeah.
And so lean into Him. If it's the last thing that you want to do, force yourself to lean in.
Yeah.
And I think that that is the way that I have not gotten stuck, is that for whatever reason, by the grace of God, the goodness of God, He has always reminded me, lean in.
Yeah.
And I will pull you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that is really helpful to think through. Those are the markers.
Yeah.
This is what you should look for.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about the practical things of, getting in the Word, spending time with the Lord. And we've mentioned a little bit about going to marriage therapy. I went to therapy. I think there is such value in going to a neutral space where they don't know your context.
Yeah.
They don't know who and what, and they don't come with their own ideas and objections into your story, but they are just a safe place for you to just vent. There is something so beautiful about therapy. God can use it as a tool to really get us out of those stuck points.
Yeah.
So I would really encourage people to look into finding a great Christian therapist if that's something that sounds great. But I also want to say, I think it's just important to not be led by our feelings because our feelings are deceptive.
They are.
And sometimes you just have to show up and you just have to do the right thing. Even when you don't feel like it, just like you tying your shoe, just do it.
Yeah.
And your emotions will kick into gear at some point. We don't know. There's no prescription, or we would be filling that for everybody, right?
Yeah, right.
We don't know if it's going to be the 3rd day or the 170th day. We don't know when we're going to cross over to feel that hope again and to get out of that place. But just being faithful in the little things. Just, I'm going to get up. I'm going to open the Word, and I don't know if I'm going to get anything, but I'm going to be faithful to open the Word, or I'm going to let worship play in the background. I can't even sing the words right now, but I'm going to let it sing over me.
Yes.
Just show up and do the faithful that you can.
Yeah.
And our emotions can catch up.
They can.
They can.
They can, but they can't lead.
No.
They're great gauges.
Yeah.
They help us see ourselves and those pain spots. They help be those alarms, the alert, the warning signs that we need, but they can't be our truth and our guide. They're just gauges.
Yeah.
And so I think that is extremely helpful for people to say, have the disciplines, take the next step, do the next right thing. And the Lord will bring those feelings, those emotions, they will follow.
Yeah.
Because emotions are a gift from the Lord. And I think if we view them as a gift rather than the truth, we would be in a much healthier space.
Yeah, that's right.
How do we fight for our healing? If we think about our bodies, our minds, our souls, our spiritual lives, look at ourselves holistically. How do we fight for healing in every space of who we are? And that's a big question.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
I think that healing is the narrative that the Lord is writing for us. Like, it is his story.
Yes.
That's what he died for.
Yeah.
That's what he came for.
Yeah.
And to just sit in your brokenness is so sad,
Yeah.
because he gave so much more for us to have so much more. And he can take any brokenness, he can take any story that we have and anything that we've been through and experienced, and he can rewrite it. He can reshape it. And I've experienced his healing so deep in my life that I'm just so passionate even about the topic, because if I just wrote down all the things that have happened to me in my life and why I shouldn't be healthy and be that victim, there's pages and pages that I could write. But I want him to rewrite those pages, because that's not who I am. There are moments in my life that happened to me or that I went through, but they don't define who Crystal is, like the daughter of God. And he's rewriting my story. He's telling a narrative that's far greater than I could ever tell. And I want that for myself.
Yeah.
My kids deserve that mom.
Yeah.
My friends deserve that friend. My husband deserves that wife.
Yeah.
And no one else is going to do it for me.
Yeah. Oh,
That's the tough
that'll
part.
preach.
Like, my husband can't encourage me enough to find healing.
Yeah.
My friends can't tell me enough to find healing. Like, I have to go there.
Yeah.
I have to do the hard work. And it's such a false screen of intimidation.
Yeah.
I think the enemy just wants to say, oh my gosh, you cannot go there. Stuff it longer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't unearth that stuff from your childhood. Don't think about that trauma. Don't. And we're fooling ourselves to think it's not affecting us.
Oh, yeah.
And what we don't know, and the saddest part is that our brokenness is being multiplied after us.
Yeah.
Because we're not seeing
Yeah.
the brokenness and how it multiplies.
Yeah.
Because we're still sitting in it.
Yeah.
But once you start finding healing, you can start spotting it more and more. I think you just got to start. I always say, if I'm talking about something that's happened to me or something I'm going through, if I feel it right here when I'm talking, telling a story, and it's coming up and it's up here, that is actually God's signal in my body to say, hey, Crystal, that actually needs some healing.
Yeah.
And it's his sweet kindness to let me know this is still in my body. My body is housing this pain, this brokenness, and it's just all in there.
Yeah.
And when it comes up, it's just his invitation to step into that healing.
I love that.
And that could be, sometimes it happens in a simple prayer and he meets us immediately. Sometimes it's 7 sessions in therapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's crying on your friend's shoulder. I mean, it can come on a walk with him, listening to your favorite worship song.
Yeah.
It can come in so many ways.
Yeah.
But we have to take that step into healing.
Yeah. I love how you call it an invitation into healing, because it is the Lord just saying, come here. I'm ready to help you through this process. Enter in.
Yes.
And that's really, I think, the hardest part, maybe it is for me, is just that first step to enter into the process, to unearth those things. That can be really hard. But when you begin, the process becomes, at least in my experience, easier and easier as you step into it. It's that first step.
Oh, it's painful.
That's the hardest.
Oh, yeah.
And that first recognition that, okay, this is here. I need to deal with it.
Yeah.
But that's helped me along the way. Even you just saying, if you feel that here, that means that it's still in there, and you've got to work through it.
Yeah.
You've got to talk about it. You have to bring it into the light. And
Yes.
that's always his invitation. And the enemy would love for us to keep those things in the dark.
Yeah.
He would love it.
Yeah.
But the Lord invites us to bring it into the light. And that is where healing is found. And you're right. That is why Jesus came. I mean, it's by his wounds
Yes.
that we are healed. And he's offering that to us. And I think that it is disobedience to stay in our brokenness, to sit there. Not that we're going to experience it,
Yeah.
but it's disobedience to sit in it when he died for it.
Yeah.
Let's walk into the healing that he has for us. And it is a process, and it's messy, and it's difficult. And sometimes it brings out things in us that we don't want to look at.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's worth it.
So
That's what
worth
I
it.
always say, because I've experienced it, and I hate seeing women sitting in pain and not even in the process of finding healing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say, step into the invitation of God to begin the journey towards healing, whether that's spiritual healing, mental healing, emotional healing, physical healing. All of it matters.
Yes.
And he has a new narrative for you.
Yeah.
A narrative of redemption and restoration for you. That's who he is. It's what he does. He specializes in those things, and that's what he wants for each one of us.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Oh man, I mean, I think the disobedience word,
It's a tough one.
It's a hard one to hear, but
I know.
I think it's so true.
Yeah.
And I've never regretted doing hard work in the end.
Yeah.
I've always regretted letting it take up so much space, letting brokenness take up so much space in my life.
Yeah.
I've never regretted a healing path. And I think as we are just trying to fight this battle, when we look around and we see somebody not trying at all, you just want to be like, girlfriend, you can't. It just feels like if you're picturing a war, they're just laying down to die. And you know that the death is upon them. And you're like, get up.
Get up.
Get up.
Yeah.
And that's just
we
like,
need you.
Yes, the earth needs you. God, there is no other you. Literally no other you. Like, he brought you to this earth this time in history with a plan and a purpose for your life. And you sitting and sinking into this death trap is exactly where the enemy would want you. Like, if all you can do is whisper Jesus' name, keep fighting. Like, don't give up. Don't succumb to the lies of the enemy. And we've got to fight. The earth needs us. This world, the lost around us, they need our perspective of who Christ is in us, for us, and we have that to share. In brokenness, we just can't do it justice. We just can't open our mouths and share hope because we feel so hopeless.
I think of some different people that I would just want to say, you are needed. Do you believe it? And you're needed for your family. You're needed for your community. You're needed for the people around you. We need you. And I've looked in people's eyes and I've thought before, I don't think they believe that they are needed. And I just think if there's anyone listening who doesn't believe that they're needed, I just want to say, you are needed. Do the work to be okay, because you're needed for the people around you. And the work is worth it. Even if it's messy, even if it's hard, you are worth it. It breaks my heart when I see people who don't believe that. Because the Lord gave his life for them. Each one. There's nothing probably that breaks my heart more than the person who doesn't realize
Yeah.
that they are so worth it, that Jesus went to the cross to say, you're worth it.
Yeah.
And so I just pray that someone would hear this and know that they're worth it.
Yeah.
And that they're needed.
Yeah.
And that they're worth the fight.
Yes.
They're worth picking up their
Yeah.
weapons and saying, I'm moving forward.
Yes.